Hey, Zero listeners, Love is Blind, Season 9, Let's Watch. My name is Dr. Kirk Honda. I'm a therapist and a professor. As I always say, don't use YouTube as a replacement for therapy. If you need a therapist, get one. We all need therapy now and then. Let's watch.
Making sure I'm not creating any drama within the boys' lounge. Make sure I'm not creating any drama in the girls' lounge. But I probably did.
So he's saying I probably did create drama in the girls' lounge. I think he's attributing the reason why Anna left to him. I wonder what that was. The best guess I have, which is the only guess, is that he told Anna and Casey that he's Asian American, that he's half Chinese and Cambodian, and that Anna was hurt maybe because he said he hadn't told anyone else that, but he told Casey that, or so. I don't know. Yeah, I could see someone being hurt by that, but it didn't seem like it was that kind of thing. And it's arguable that he didn't actually tell Casey as much as he told Anna. You know what I mean? Because Anna said, "Have you told anyone else this?" And he's like, "No, I haven't told anyone." And I think he might have been thinking, I haven't told anyone. I told Casey some, but I didn't tell all of this stuff. But I can't imagine anyone, particularly Anna, she seems like that she's got a good head on her shoulders, that she would just ghost him. Because with Anna, she had two guys that she really liked. She liked Blake and Patrick. So I don't know, but it sounds like maybe he heard something and they're just not telling us. I'm really curious.
How you doing?
I'm all right. Just
Thinking?
yeah.
Lost in translation?
Yeah.
I don't know if that's what we would call a microaggression, but it could be. At the very least, it's a poor choice of words. It risks being received as a microaggression because he's supposedly foreign or something, lost in translation. Now, maybe this guy, I don't know who this guy is because we haven't seen him in the edit. I think this might be the first time we've ever seen him. You know, he could be totally innocent. He could, the problem is that we have racism in general. And when you receive microaggressions, then you might overinterpret statements from people as being motivated by ignorance. I don't think this person is necessarily actively racist, but that phrasing, right? When you see Patrick's face, I've had that face many times, so let's rewind that.
How you doing?
I'm all right. Just
Thinking?
yeah.
Lost in translation?
Yeah, I don't know what he is thinking, but the way it looks to me is he's just like, yeah, if he were to be honest, which would be weird because it's awkward, he'd be like, what's that supposed to mean? Lost in translation. I hope it makes sense as to why that, maybe to spell it out, it's this assumption of speaking different languages, which is associated with being foreign, which is often attributed automatically to Asian Americans. Now, even if he happened to emigrate from East Asia, that could still be hurtful because it will point out these differences. But I, as a fourth generation, my ancestors came in 1900 on a ship to Tacoma, Washington, and yet I would still hear these things. So it's like, will we ever shed the association that we are foreign?
But it's like emotional turmoil. Now I'm thinking about my connection with Casey. She was, in my head, she was my number two, so.
Okay, it's always kind of nice, I guess, or helpful when they tell us precisely where the ranking was. So Casey was number two, and that's the way it looked.
Unfortunately, I'm gonna have to go back to Denver by myself.
You good, Pat?
Okay.
Patrick with the one-liners, bro.
I don't know. So let's rewind that. Maybe it was edited, but why are those two guys laughing? I'm going to take a guess and say they're not laughing at Patrick, but they might be. At the very least, tonally, it's off to me. I'm watching an edited, but let's rewatch.
You good, Pat?
Okay.
Okay, rewatching it, maybe they're laughing with Patrick because he's a man of few words when it comes to this sort of thing, and they're just uncomfortable or laughing with Patrick, but I don't know. because this guy, Joe, I've already wondered about his maturity level or his seriousness. Now, you know, people can be silly and laugh. I frequently will. I don't know. But I don't know. I don't know. What do you think? I guess we don't know. We don't know.
Her like sister like lives in Korea, and her dad like goes to Korea for like karaoke, and her brothers are in interracial relationships, and gosh, it makes me feel ridiculously comfortable. Keep this between you and
I wonder where he grew up. I don't know the cultural mix of Denver, but I can't imagine that it's that different than what I imagine in my mind. Because the way that he talks, I'm a half Asian, so I have the privilege of being half white and also not looking Asian to some people, I guess. When I grew up, everyone identified me as other. I think it was because if you were anything other than stark white, you would definitely stick out. In my older age, particularly in Seattle, there will be people that won't necessarily know, or I don't know, I feel like I don't have a lot of conversations about it, but the way he talks, he considers Casey to be an anomaly, that she would be open to dating an Asian American man. I find that to be disheartening, but also surprising because that's just not my experience. So it makes me wonder if he grew up in a really small town or he had some bad experiences or something that makes him be surprised or appreciative of Casey because she's at least seemingly not racist. It's just such a sad fucking state of affairs that he would be like, oh my God, there's a white woman that is like open. I
was going on dates with her, but like her and I just like her and I just don't
jive.
Yeah, like, we just don't have a lot in common.
Yeah, I feel like her and I jive a lot because she's my number one.
If I'm being completely honest,
Yeah.
in my last date with Casey,
Yeah.
we basically like broke up.
All right, so Mike is, I think, trying to hint or tell Patrick that there might be something wrong with Casey. I don't know. So it sounds like at this point in the 10 days when they're in the pods that the guys are starting to maybe ask, are you dating the person I'm dating? And I guess when I think about it, Patrick would be interested in that because he's been focusing on Anna and hasn't been trying to figure out if there is competition or anything. Not necessarily that Patrick is thinking that or that he is naturally competitive. I don't know. But anyway, so Mike is saying that he was at least in connection kind of with Casey, but he also said that his main person is Megan, Sparkle Megan. And anyway, so he said, yeah, we basically broke up.
Yeah.
Wow,
And
boys, dude, I do look so shook.
my take on her is she's a little, maybe because her and I don't have much of a connection,
Yeah,
obviously.
let's not talk about it.
Sorry, fuck.
Yeah.
Okay. So Mike is about to give his take. He's saying, and they're about to fist bump. He's saying, yeah, I guess, and you know, that's fine. Mike, of course, that's what they're all doing, right? When they're dating multiple people, they're weighing the pros and cons. And if someone is a number two, or if they broke up with someone, then they're going to have a narrative as to why that happened. You know, well, because, you know, she had this quality that I didn't like. And Mike was about to talk about that. And, you know, he was being careful. He wasn't just blurting it out. There was a lot of awkward pauses. And then Patrick, in a very healthy way, is like, let's not talk about that, which is great. And then Mike, to his credit, is like, yeah, fuck, you know, yeah. And then, you know, they're fist bumping. So that's great. Although I guess it would be interesting to hear other people's take, but you know, just to gather information. Having said all that, Mike has demonstrated himself to not be the most, I don't know, relatable guy to me anyway. Maybe to Patrick he would be, with the way, you know, I've already talked about. It was funny because with Mike, we weren't really getting much data. And then all of a sudden, like in this really short amount of time, it was him bragging and bragging and bragging and bragging and bragging.
Like, I need you to like let me know.
You did have 3 today?
I have one.
Do you know if any of them ghosted?
Yep.
Hey, what do you mean?
Was it Anna?
Ghosted?
Yeah.
Oh, she ghosted during one of your dates.
Yeah, but fuck it.
Yeah,
Well, she did the same shit to...
Yeah, I mean, for me, I get it.
So, yeah, they're conferring data. I don't know this other guy. It looks like this is later in the 10 days, but I don't know. Well, I'm pretty sure it is, right? By context. So this Dylan guy, I wonder if he managed to get to, or maybe he'll be a sneaker inner in the end of the pod's editing, and suddenly he'll be going to the getaway or something. I don't know. The little I've seen, I don't know. I won't jump to any conclusions.
If she gotta go, she gotta go. You know.
Yeah.
I don't have any ill will towards it. Like,
That's the one that you said you felt too similar to?
yeah, dude. You know, like, do
Yeah.
you know what I mean, dude? When it's too similar,
You don't want to be fucking your twin.
it just didn't align. You know.
That escalated quickly. I don't know if this is what Patrick is talking about, at least in part, but when I was growing up, since I grew up in an all-white community, not just there weren't any Asian Americans, there were no black people. There was like one black kid in my school, and he wasn't even in my grade. And there certainly weren't any Asian Americans. There was a Vietnamese American guy that entered our school when I was like in middle school, and I was so happy. Like, an Asian guy. Anyway, so I don't know if this is what Patrick is talking about. When I was growing up, I found that when I did happen to come across other Asian Americans and there was the possibility of dating or hitting on people or something, the women felt like sisters or cousins to me because that was my experience. All the Asian American girls that I knew were cousins or sisters. And so it felt like that. Not always, of course, but it would sometimes. Because I did eventually, once I was in Seattle, because I lived outside of Seattle in the suburbs. And when I came to Seattle, there's a lot of Asian American, particularly at University of Washington. And I would wonder why I wasn't now that I had a more Asian American women to date, I was wondering why it wasn't happening as often. And I wondered if it was because of that thing growing up. And I don't know if that's what he's talking about. But anyway, Dylan, let's rewind how this escalates.
That's the one that you said you felt too similar to?
Yeah, dude. You know, like, do
Yeah.
you know what I mean, dude? When it's too similar,
You don't want to be fucking your twin.
You don't want to be fucking your twin. Wow. Tell me the porn websites you look at without telling me the porn websites you look at.
it just didn't align. You know. Casey has a lot to offer. Kind of figured that out. We agree on a lot of things. We agree on basically everything.
So there's a fair amount of indication, I'm guessing, to the audience that he's trying to convince himself that Casey is the one for him. There's a fair amount of things that he's saying. And from the outside, from the audience perspective, it looks like he's trying to shove a square peg into a round hole, or he is just wanting to go to the next phase, or Casey's getting a raw deal because she's always going to be second best or something. And that could be, but we don't know. That this happens sometimes. It's happened in previous seasons. I'm trying to remember who it was, but there's been a number of people who are married with kids today, maybe, who went through something like this, where their person rejected them or left or something, and then they went to number two. That, of course, happens throughout the week. They date all 16 people on the first 2 days. They go through all 16 people at least once. And they start ranking. And from my contact, they are usually, I don't know if they're instructed or guided to reduce it down to about 8 to 10 people. But after the full speed round where they date each person for 5, 10, 15 minutes. And it's a full day, each of the 2 days. And they're told to wear the same outfit so that they can make it look like all of those dates are the first dates. You know what I mean? Anyway, and then third day, they will narrow it down to 8 to 10, and then they start narrowing it down from there. So at midweek, all of them have a list that would have some jockeying of positions, you know what I mean? So we'll see what happens. So if Patrick does go with Casey, and if Casey accepts and they get engaged and they go to the next phase, which it kind of seems like that's going to happen given that they're focusing on them in the edit, I don't know. I could see it working. But they're pretty different personalities. Casey seems like she has like a certain sense of humor, almost like a droll, self-deprecating sense of humor at times. And Patrick just seems like he seems like a solid, dependable guy. We'll see what happens, I guess.
We agree on a lot of things. We agree on basically everything.
Yeah, what specifically?
Man, dude, I got to recall the date, dude. Sorry, man. Sorry, dude. It's been a long day.
So he's in the midst of talking about Casey and I share so much in common. Oh my God. That's why, she's my number one. And they asked, yeah, what specifically? And he said, now it could be a long day. That absolutely does happen. If this is at the end of the day, particularly later in the week, they could be there for hours and hours and hours. Again, from my contact on the show, they have 2 different shifts essentially because of the workers that are working behind the scenes. They can't work 16 hours a day. So there's a morning, afternoon shift with camera crew and production and everything. And then later on in the week, if people are moving forward, because a lot of people, I don't know if they go home exactly, but if they haven't been chosen, there's a whole number of people by mid the 10 days in the pods where they're just like, I haven't connected with anybody, or the people I have are not connecting with me, and they're already going with other people. So, because you can kind of tell in the lounge, there's smaller and smaller groups. Anyway, so it's possible that he got there at 8, 9 in the morning. He's been on various days, and the other thing they don't show us is that their dates later in the 10-day span of time can be long, like hours and hours, which they want, right? Not only just to be with the person that they love, but also they're still trying to vet. They really want to make sure. And I think that adds context because the edit kind of makes it look like that's not the case, but that is the case. So when people do get engaged, we have to assume that they've, because you have to think, well, it's only 10 days. But if you spend 8 hours a day for 5 days straight with someone and you're just talking and thinking and asking questions and thinking, and it's an accelerated initial dating period. Anyway, so it's possible that he is tired. It's also possible evidence that he is trying to shove a square peg into a round hole and he's not actually interested in Casey. He's trying to convince himself of that. Or another option is he's just not very good at articulating things, which I think might be true. Not that he's not articulate, but that he's not a poet. To answer that question, you kind of have to be in connection with that language, right? I mean, no one is particularly good at that, but it's a challenge. How do you put it into words, right? When he said we have a lot in common or we share a lot of things in common, that might be true for him, but when asked specifically, he might say, well, how do I put this into words? And he's, I'm tired. I don't know. I don't know. Or he was just saying something that he thought he should say. We share a lot in common, but really what he meant was, I was really connecting with Casey. And the more I think about it, I think Casey and I would be really great together. And we have a lot in common. And he hasn't really thought of, because he hasn't really thought about what he means by that. And it's late anyway. So we'll see what happens.
Man, dude, I got to recall the date, dude. Sorry, man. Sorry, dude. It's been a long day.
And good for him for just, I wish that people would do this more often, that they would just say, I don't know. Because what most people do is they'll make something up or they'll get defensive. Why you ask me? Or they'll stall for time when they don't really know an answer. Sometimes we're tired and we can't think of something and we just go, sorry, I can't think of anything right now. Like one of the best compliments I have ever received as a human being, but also as a professor, is a student once complimented me for occasionally saying, I don't know, when students ask me questions. And I try to remember that because I don't think I'm very good at that all the time. I'm a bit of a know-it-all. And also when you're a professor, you feel this compulsion to prove that you know the answer to every single question, particularly if it's supposed to be in your wheelhouse. And that was a huge compliment that I received, and because I don't always do that. And not only is it just a good practice because you don't want to just make shit up, but also I feel like when I have a professor or a mentor or someone, an expert that says, I don't know, what it gives me is trust that when they do answer a question, it's likely to be accurate because they know what they don't know. All right, well, let's adjourn there. So if you want to support what we're doing here, you can become a YouTube member or a patron on Patreon, or both. Both have their exclusive content, but only if you care to, or if you can afford, or I don't know, the other factors that might lead to that decision. But really, the only reason why I'm here is because the patrons and the YouTube members are literally paying my bills so that I don't have to work in my other jobs as much. So, yeah, if you care to. And everyone out there, please take care of yourself because you deserve it. You really, really do.